Webcasting on? Yeah, okay. Evening and welcome to this evening's Audit and Governance Committee. I'm Peter Bolton, Chairman, and I will read out a webcasting introduction. I would like to remind everybody present that this meeting will be broadcast to the internet or filmed and will be capable of repeated viewing or another use by third parties. If you are seated in the lower public area, then it is likely that the recording cameras will capture your image, and this will result in the possibility that your image will become part of the broadcast. This may infringe your human and data protection rights, and if you wish to avoid this, then you should move to the upper public gallery. Can I please remind members to activate the microphones before speaking? Mine is allowed to be left on, and turn them off when you've finished speaking, because it will block other people's speaking. Item 2, apologies for absence. Gary.
Thank you, Chairman. I've had none come through today. I will check our master apologies list, and if any have come through before today's meeting, I'll ensure that they are in the minutes.
Yes, thank you. Declarations of interest? No, thank you. Present the minutes of the last meeting to you. Are there any questions to address to that, or can they be accepted as an accurate record of the last meeting? Yes, yes, thank you. Approved. Matters arising. I'm not aware of any matters arising outside the agenda.
Apologies, Chair.
Oh, sorry. Sorry, I missed you.
Apologies. Am I coming across okay?
Yes, yes.
Okay, perfect. I was just going to suggest, Chair, a minor tweak to the minutes on page 5. Item 31. So we've got paragraph 3. There's the second sentence of that paragraph refers to work was also progressing on the audit of the accounts for 22-23. The 22-23 audit hasn't started, so I suggest just removing that sentence, if that's okay.
Yes, I think so. Is it? Yes. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. The item 6, the Audit and Governance Committee work programme, which is presented to you. At this point, I would like to say that we have interviewed 4 lay members of this committee. We interviewed 4 people, and we're very lucky to appoint 2 very excellent candidates, one of whom is with us today, Cecil, and Harry, and their names will be put forward for ratification to Cabinet, and we hope to see them as full members at the next meeting in the next municipal year. Thank you. Any other comments about the work programme? No, thank you. So that is accepted. We now move on to item 7, which is the external auditor's update. And I'd like to hand over to Mo Ramsar, who is from Deloitte, who will present his report. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So you recall from the minutes we reported to the last audit committee on the finalisation of the 2021 audit, which was signed following the meeting, and we noted progress on the 21-22 audit. So in terms of, and we agreed to come back to this committee to update on progress. So in terms of our papers, firstly, for completeness, we have the 21-22 audit plan, and our planning work was completed during 22-23 alongside finalising the audit, the FY21 audit, and this plan sets out our approach for the 21-22 year, what the significant risks that were relevant to the audit, and that's the plan that we've progressed along in undertaking our work. Now, I wanted to share that with the committee, but I wasn't planning to say too much more on this paper unless there were any questions. I wanted to move on to the paper setting out the findings from our work, which is the second report.
Yeah. Are there any questions at this point from members? No? Thank you. Mo?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So we share our ISA 260 report, which is not the final report, so it's an in-progress version, but as the progress is sufficient, we're able to share a report that provides a good overview of the status of the work and findings from that work. If I may, I'll take you to the executive summary, the key messages of the report on page 3 of the document. That sets out at the top that our audit is nearing completion at the current stage, and in terms of the status of our work, there are a few matters still outstanding, and they're principally around completion, so they're reviewing and reconciling the final versions of the updated financial statements, which the finance team are working to produce at the moment, and then ensuring that all of our final checks are undertaken, and we obtain the management representations and undertake any final post-balance sheet review prior to signing the opinions for 21-22. So in a good position overall. It also notes that similarly progress is good in terms of the work around value for money, and that is being concluded as a combined review for 21-22 and 22-23, and so that will be coming back to the committee in due course. And in the bottom section of that page, we just set out that based on the current status of our work and us finalising the remaining audit work with no further issues, we do envisage issuing a modified audit opinion, so it's a clean audit opinion with no reference to any matters in respect of the Council's arrangements to secure economy, efficiency and effectiveness and use of resources, or the annual government statement. So looking to be a good position there in terms of the 21-22 audit. The rest of the report sets out our conclusions across the significant risk areas, also sets out some control observations from our work, which have been shared with management and along with the recommendations, and the management team have provided responses in terms of how they're looking to address those going forward. It also sets out any adjustments noted as part of the audit work. We will bring a final version of this report to the audit committee that approves the final account in due course, but this provides a good position and status at this point. I'm happy to sort of stop there and take any questions or observations.
Thank you. Thank you. Before we go further, I'd like to welcome Councillor Owen. Welcome. Do you have any declarations of interest?
I do not, and apologies. Central line and then the traffic outside. I was very late, so apologies.
Understood. Yes. Thank you. Right. Any questions from members of the committee on the report as Mo has presented? Okay. Councillor Whitehead.
I mean, I did want to ask about componentisation, which I remember us discussing when that policy was on the horizon and thinking what a nightmare that would be to implement and deal with. And I see that it's sort of picked up on page 17 as being, an issue where the policy seems to be unclear. And I just, what's the way forward on that? I mean, it seems, particularly where you've got components of wildly varying lifestyles going way back into the past, and actually the value, it seems to me always more important to have a consistent policy than a policy that puts a notional value on things that you can't really put a separate value onto. And I just wondered what it means by having not a confirmed policy. Is that there's a policy that exists but it's not been approved, or that the policy varies? Could we just have a bit more sort of clarification on what that's all about?
Could I address this to either my colleagues or...
Sorry, page 17. Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't quite get the question. I mean, in terms of componentisation, I recall being quite concerned when it was first introduced. But largely, it's been okay. It's been a challenge this time, though, in the light of infrastructure assets, which I'm sure our audit colleagues could explain far better than I can. But by and large, that was met to the satisfaction of the external auditors in the end. So it was difficult to identify some works that had taken place on infrastructure assets going back many years. We're talking 10, 20 years and things like that in many cases. So the separate components of infrastructure assets, so if a pathway was relayed and things like that, that had to be separately identified. So I don't know if the external auditors who got better knowledge than me. I do apologise that the principal accountant is not with us tonight to go through the detail, but I don't know if our external auditors could help out on that point.
Mo,
Yes,
thank you.
Yes, Chair. So I think the point we're recognising there is as part of our review of the Council's valuers report and the level of detail in there, we identified a number of areas where we thought that report could set out some more detail and clarity that would assist our specialists in their review. And so that's where we've suggested, and I think there are a number of bullet points there where the authority may want to pick up with its valuers going forward in terms of the valuation that's undertaken and what's included in those reports. So it is a good practice recommendation to pick up with the Council's valuers going forward.
So it's basically about getting the valuer to deliver on the expectation that the council and the external auditor has. Is that what the point was right now? Sorry. So is it basically about getting the valuer to meet the expectations that the external auditor and the council has? Is that sort of point you're driving at?
It is.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other questions to put to the external auditor? No? Thank you. Well, thank you for your update, and hope it's nice and not too wet up in Birmingham, and thank you for joining our meeting. You're more than welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting, or you can go and have your supper. Sorry for being glib.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Thank you.
So the committee needs to consider the audit planning report and consider the ISO 260 report.
Right.
Should I say that?
Yes, please. Yes. Sarah is going to be.
So the committee needs to agree that they've considered the audit planning report for 21-22 and the ISO 260 report for 21-22.
Any comments from, so we have considered and accept and recommend. Thank you. Thank you. We can now move on to the next one, can't we? Yes. We now move on to... Oh, I didn't. Sorry. To the risk management, item 8, which is on pages 11 to 28, which will be presented by Sarah, our internal auditor, chief internal auditor. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm presenting this on behalf of the Section 151 officer who couldn't make it tonight. So I'll take you to the table on page 12. So this sets out the current situation with the corporate risk register. There has been little movement on most of those. You can see that 3 of the risks have been considered to be going, the risk score has been going downwards. So that's around the business continuity plans. We now have a corporate business continuity plan supported by service business continuity plans that are now held centrally on the staff intranet. And there was a desktop exercise taking place in December, which was undertaken by the wider leadership team, and the lessons learned from that are being worked through. More training and awareness taking place, and there will be another desktop exercise taking place in December, and that will then be an annual process. So things are definitely moving in the right direction there, and that's why we've reduced the risk. The next one there that has reduced down is around the climate change. So we now have a very much joined up process across the council. We have engagement by the executive team, the senior leadership team and the wider leadership team, and we have an action plan there to deliver that. And the waste service delivery has come down in its risk, so that has moved on. We're purchasing, going through the procurement process for our vehicles. Planning permission for the hub at Northfield has been approved, and it's been the whole project is being closely monitored again at the executive team level. There is one new risk that has been added, which is now at the top of page 13, around the inability of the quality of decision making for major planning applications. We already had this risk. It was being monitored at a service level, because some of the councils have received determination letters from central government where they've been failing. We've decided to escalate it to the corporate risk. And there is work going on in the background to make sure that we are monitoring this on a very close basis. Happy to take any questions.
Any? Councillor Ryan.
Just on the climate change one, I mean, we've turned it from red to amber. I know we want to be carbon neutral by 2030. Are we on target to make that? I think from my personal point of view, I would say it's quite a great risk. I see a lot of stuff that's getting done, and there's good stuff getting done, but we're building like mad. I haven't seen any improvement in air quality myself. Have we got any readings to kind of back that type of stuff up as well? Thank you.
Sarah, are you able to? Thank you.
I can't give you the full detail on that. It's not obviously an area that I manage or anything like that. I do know that we do have a plan, an action plan. So if you have a specific question, I'm quite happy to take that back to the service area.
Thank you. Councillor White.
Yeah, I mean, a couple of things, if I may. On the Council House Build programme, at the budget, there was some talk about whether or not the amount of money the council could retain from right to buy receipts to be reduced. And I can't remember seeing anything about that since. But, I mean, is that the case? And if so, does that pose a risk to the delivery of the Council House Build programme at the scale it is at the moment?
Chris,
right to buy receipts, the rules around that, I believe well, first of all, they're built into the current plan. So the plan that was presented and adopted as part of the budget, the HRA business plan that sits beneath it, is in accordance with the current right to buy research rules. They're highly technical, and I'd have to feed back, speak to a colleague who's an expert in this area to give you the precise details on how it works. But just to reassure you that the HRA business plan, the underlying business plan that supported the HRA budget and medium-term financial plan, it was consistent and represented the rules in place. But I'll have to check if there's any changes afoot. And
John, would you like that to be addressed directly to yourself or as a comment put into the minutes, which would be most helpful?
I don't mind, is the honest answer.
Okay.
But
Well, perhaps possibly, would it be able to be put into the minutes, the response to that question? Because it then is shared among other officers. Thank you. Members, sorry. Thank you. Yes, John.
And the other thing I wanted to ask was about this new quality of decision risk. I mean, that's based on a sort of a percentage of decisions made in a particular time, isn't it? So presumably there comes a time when that risk falls off because the time period moves on and we're being measured against a different set of applications decided in a particular period. So is it a risk that increases over time or decreases over time? Because presumably, you know, the snapshot of applications being looked at over time changes.
Sarah.
So yeah, you're right about the timescales with this, because you know developments take a long time to come through. The risk at the moment is that we get central government intervention because our target should be 10%. We're at 9.8, so we're literally on the cusp of it. That's why we're monitoring it on a very close basis. So, and there are other councils who their percentages are much lower than that. So, by monitoring this and looking at our processes as well, hopefully we can bring it up to the over the 10%. That's the risk, is the government intervention.
John.
Yeah, I get that. What I'm trying to understand is essentially if the next major application that comes through is approved, does the figure then go down to 8.7% or something, and therefore it decreases? Or if the next one's declined, does that automatically tip us over 10% because it's a sort of it's a cumulative process? Or is it a snapshot in that this refers to the figures in whichever year or whichever time period it was, and then we enter the next time period and the clock starts again, and you then look at that? I'm trying to work out what the nature of the risk is, because if it's 9.8 and we've just missed the threshold and it's not due to be reassessed for some time, well, that actually may not be as big a risk as we're thinking it might be.
So I'm just looking at the notes that when I spoke to Nigel about this, and we're monitoring it over a 2-year period, so that things, appeals where they started 3 years ago may impact on us now. So we don't know what the impact of these decisions coming through now are going to do on our percentages.
So the percentages will be determined in 2 years, but not on an interim basis during those 2 years. Is that correct?
I don't really want to say any more because I'm not a technical expert in this area. But, you can ask your portfolio holder or the service director if you want some more detail.
Thank you. John,
Yeah, I mean, the basic point is how the Department of Local Government, whatever they're called these days, Department of Levelling Up, measure this. It has a fairly critical impact on the actions we need to take to do it. I'm not suggesting we just sort of, I'm not suggesting we should be driven by percentages. You know, we need to be driven by the quality of the planning application. Yeah, no, I'll take that up separately. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you. No, finished with that, yes. We now move on to,
Hang on.
sorry, 9.
So I'll read that out. So the recommendation is to consider the current risk register and to refer to Cabinet for approval.
Yes.
Ask if that's been agreed.
Yes. Are we in agreement to the risk management report? And are there any comments? Can we
And refer it to Cabinet.
refer to Cabinet? Yes.
Well, I think the comments are on the planning risk, because if this is all about member decision making, it's not obvious to me how a restructure of planning services addresses the particular risk mentioned in here.
Yeah.
So I just think that there's more to do to link with, you know, how the national KPI actually relates to, you know, the mitigation controls. The linkage isn't as clear cut as it is on some of the other risks, I suggest.
Yes, thank you. So,
Yep.
that, yes,
We've done that, yeah.
we note your comments and agree that it should be fed through to Cabinet.
I do agree with the need to defend appeals properly. That's a,
Yeah, thank you. Right.
Carry on.
Yeah. Okay, we're now, move to item number 9, Internal Audit Progress Report. Thank you again. Back to Sue as Deputy Internal Auditor. Give her
Thank
a
you.
title.
Thank you, Chair. So I'm Sue, the lead auditor at Epping, and I'd just like to take you through this report to give you a summary of the work of Internal Audit and Corporate Fraud team since the last meeting in February, which is for noting, but I'm also seeking approval to defer or cancel 3 audits, which I'll come to. So progress is being made on this year's audit plan that's shown in Appendix 1, but we're requesting that the committee agrees to cancelling the Section 114 notices audit from the approved audit plan 23-24, which came to committee last March. This is because the Council has robust spending controls in place and we have issued a balanced budget for 24-25. We're also seeking approval to defer 2 audits to subsequent years. So that's the delivery of the local plan to allow more time for its implementation, and council tax and business rates to defer while they're undergoing their annual billing process. One final report has been issued, that's purchase cards, and was given reasonable assurance. There are robust processes for issuing and cancelling cards, and also for approving and monitoring purchases by the card holders. When the full rollout of the trial using the NatWest portal is completed, that will actually help with the issue around retaining receipts in which to reclaim the VAT. So the recommendation tracker, all the detail is shown in Appendix 2, but I think it's just worth noting that the numbers have dropped again slightly, and I know that action has been taken on all the recommendations in there. Paragraph 6 shows some of the other internal audit activities which help to give assurances. Paragraph 7 shows the progress against the 22-23 annual governance statement. And finally, the corporate fraud team update is there. I'm happy to take any questions.
Any questions? Councillor Owen.
When are we deferring these until, is my question, for each one?
So the council tax and business rates is in the audit plan for next year, and that's the next item on the agenda. The local plan at the moment is in for 25-26.
Councillor Whitehouse. Sorry. Yeah.
It just
You
seems
want to come
like
back?
a long time on the local plan one. That it would have been in place 3 years. I don't know what everyone else thinks, but it seems like a long time.
I mean, I was going to pick up the same point in that we've been operating the local plan, certainly as far as development and management policies go, largely since 2018. And it only lasts until 2033. So if we're not looking at it until 25-26, that's actually quite a long way through the life of the plan. And given we're at the stage now when there's major applications coming down the track, and the importance of all the local plan daughter documents and the green infrastructure strategies and air pollution mitigation plans and so forth, delivering on time to support infrastructure development plans, delivering on time to support the wider local plan, it worries me that we'll be looking at some of these things in retrospect if we leave it too long. I mean, I like the idea of looking at the tree strategy, but I'm not convinced it's as important as the local plan. Again, looking at the risk register as well.
Can I, before you go, when you said it's being deferred to next year, do you mean in a calendar year or a municipal year or a council year?
No, it's the municipal year.
Okay, thank you. That shortens it a little bit, but it won't. I suspect it won't be April. Yes, soon.
Yeah, so I've taken on board your concerns there. Just because I'm not doing an audit doesn't mean that I'm getting informal assurances there. What I should do, I should go back and have a look at the plan and see if I can get that one in. Maybe I have to bump one of the other audits, but I'll definitely take that into serious consideration.
Thank you. Does that address Councillor Owen? Thank you.
I mean, who knows who's going to be on this committee next year, but perhaps we should just defer them for a year for the next committee to make a decision in a year's time, would be my suggestion.
Yes, the next committee, yes, will be formed in a couple of months, but yes, within that municipal year, yes, but not longer than that, I would have thought, if that's in agreement with the council, with the members. Thank you.
Recommendations?
Yes.
So the recommendations for this item is that the committee notes the summary of the work of internal audit and the corporate fraud team for the period February to March 24. The committee approves the cancellation of one audit, the deferral of the council tax and business rate ones, and to bring back to the committee at next time about the local plan delivery one.
Yes, approved. Yes, thank you. What else do we on item 9 now? We're on item 9, yeah.
No, item 10.
10. Item 10, which is the audit strategy and audit plan for 24-25. Ask Sue to...
No, I'm going to do this one.
Oh, I put her name by it originally, sorry. Sarah, sorry.
Thank you, Chair. So it's important that I have a plan to ensure that I do enough work in order that I can give my annual opinion on internal control, governance and risk management, and hopefully you can see that in the plan. I'm going to run through the strategy. I'm not actually going to run through the plan, which is Appendix A, but you also need to be aware of Appendix B, which looks at the corporate risk for the council and how we're providing those assurances to you that those risks are being adequately managed. So on my paper then, on page 47, item 4, a reminder that the internal audit function has a mission about helping to enhance and protect the council's value by providing risk-based and objective assurance, advice and insight. There's 10 core principles there, and I always like the last 2 to make sure that we are insightful, proactive and future focused, and that we're always promoting council improvement. And that's the key aim of the internal audit function. So on the top of page 48, there's the key deliverables that for 24-25. These haven't changed from previous years. So I'm here to deliver the internal audit plan, which hopefully you're going to approve. Make sure there are integrated approach to assurances, looking at the work of risk management, health and safety, and consultants and things, and making an external audit, making sure there's no duplication, and what assurances I can apply on that. Management commitment is really important, because it's no good us doing our work and making recommendations and nothing happens. That's why we bring the tracker to you each time, to help make sure that those are implemented within a timely basis. We're always continuing to develop our approach. We've been working this last year on data analytics, and we hope to do more of that and refine the work that we do, making sure that we're providing what is needed both for you as a committee and for senior management. And again, that business insight. So we may look at some of our testing may look backwards, but we're always thinking about the future, what's happening in the council, what's going to help improve the council going forward. Page 48 talks about quality assurance. So on every 5 years under the internal audit standards, we have to have what's called an external quality assessment, and we've had one of those recently, and we were fully compliant with every single component of that. Bringing to your attention that the Institute of Internal Audit have now changed their standards, and they've produced brand new ones called the Global Internal Audit Standards. This is applicable to every internal audit function across the world, regardless of sector. It shouldn't be that different from what we're already achieving, but I need to do a piece of work to make sure that we are compliant with all of those new standards, and if there are any gaps or omissions, bring to you an action plan on how we're going to deliver that. Well, we keep an eye on the performance of the internal audit, and under item 18, there's the performance indicators that we'll report to you on an annual basis. They're the same ones as last year. So when I've been developing the internal audit plan, I just don't sit in a dark cupboard and do that in isolation. I look at what the work that we've done across the council. We also look at work that we've done in the other 3 councils in the shared service. I listen to what's happening within the council, attend various meetings, talking to people the whole time. Very much making sure it's a risk-based plan against the corporate risk register and also the service risk registers. Looking at the other assurance providers, as I've talked about previously, and then also looking at the external environment, what new technology is coming along the way, what new legislation that might trip us up, are we prepared for things? So taking that all into account, I then, my plan, which is Appendix A, is cut into 3 different layers to make sure I'm covering everything that I feel that I should cover. So the first level is the corporate framework, where we're looking at the governance structures, we're looking at risk management. Then the second layer is more the strategic themes. These tend to be cross-cutting audits, where we're looking at income, or we're looking at climate and things like that. And then further down, there's the service areas where we're looking at the more detailed audits there. So the priority areas for 24-25 under section 25 haven't changed from previous years. So we, again, making sure we're doing work around information governance and management. I work very closely with both the Senior Information Risk Officer and our Data Protection Officer, and we have various project officer groups to oversee that. Work very closely with our insurance and risk manager to make sure that risk management is being well embedded within the council, making sure that we're challenging where possible, attending SLT and LT to make sure that they're looking at their risks on a regular basis. It's important that we're managing fraud, and I oversee the corporate fraud team, and we've got the fraud plan coming up later in the agenda. And value for money, always looking out for value for money. You know, is there a better way the council can do things? Are we benchmarking? If we're not benchmarking, I'll put them in contact with other offices from the other councils in the shared service. And every audit we consider benchmarking and the three E's: economy, efficiencies and effectiveness. And I've put there again about the audit and governance committee, making sure we support you with what you need to do so you can undertake your role. And then at a more operational level, we always include an element around Qualis, being our key subsidiary of the council, making sure that's working as intended. There remains an element of key financial control audits, debtors, accounts payable, payroll, things like that. Governance frameworks I've already mentioned, but we also look at things like project management, programme management as well as health and safety. And then continue doing more with data analytics, because data is key to everything. So considering that all together then, so on item 29 there, so I'm going to deliver you 464 days, and happy to take any questions.
Any questions from members? John, Councillor Whitehouse.
In the classic way, a sort of comment and a question, if that's all right. Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's anything obvious missing from the audit plan beyond what we discussed in the previous item. You know, I think it's good that we've got you know, the attention paid to Qualis that we heard about. I mean, the council relies a lot on external organisations, hands over big amounts of money to other organisations to carry out services for residents. So it's important that we understand what we get in return, and that works both from a sort of financial and performance point of view. The only sort of question I had really was, are you happy as sort of the head of the service that you've got the staff and other resources to carry out the plan, or access to the resources and staff or skills that you need?
Yeah, I'm quite happy that we have got the resources to deliver that. So, because I look after 4 councils and the team works across all 4 councils. So I've got a large pool of people that I can call on. We've got a whole range of expertise and knowledge there, but I also have a call-off contract with an external provider. They do all my IT audits, and I use them for any additional work where I've got any knowledge or experience gaps, or I haven't got time to deliver some of the work that we want to do.
Thank you. Any other comments? Thank you. So we're asked to make decisions on whether we recommend the effectiveness and contribution of internal audit strategy and plan within the Council's assurance framework to be considered, and the internal audit strategy and plan for 24-25 to be approved. Yes? Thank you. Now move on to item 11, which is the corporate fraud team plan for 24-25. And Mr. Martin, I don't know if we can introduce Martin Crowe, who heads up this. plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. As you say, my name's Martin Crowe. I'm the team manager for the corporate fraud investigation team. Excuse me. This agenda item is for the committee's approval and sets out the focus and approach of the corporate fraud team for the forthcoming year. In the interest of brevity, I won't go through every single point that's on the report, but just adhere to a few main ones. As you can see, the team is adhering to these by now familiar twin track approach when it comes to anti-fraud work. And that is, first of all, dealing with the reactive side of anti-fraud work, which is referrals, information that comes into the team via staff members, members of the public, other agencies, etc., including our fraud hotline, both on the telephone and online as well. And every referral that we receive via this way will continue to be vetted and risk assessed and investigated in order of priority. The second work track is the second arm of this, which is proactive work, with several examples of the areas that we included in the report that we continue to look at. For example, the always steadfast right to buy applications, coupled with other projects that we plan to instigate throughout the year. One such project that is already underway that we're undertaking in advance of the period ahead, as in the report, is the formulation of hopefully a bespoke fraud awareness training package for members in the first instance, and then followed by a rollout, very similar training package aimed at staff, officers, contractors and suppliers. As also part of our ongoing commitment to engage our key stakeholders, we're also planning to undertake a council-wide survey which will include all staff and service areas, which is intended to help better understand the risks of each service the risks each service faces, and where required, we'll undertake one-to-one follow-up sessions that have the potential to feed into both the audit plan going forward, possibly the risk registers, as well as the audit and fraud policies that we currently already have in place. And also, the team is also preparing to receive the new National Fraud Initiative data matches that are set to be released later this year, and what we'll be looking to do is provide a resource to be set aside to assess these and undertake any investigations that may arise out of these data matches. Happy to take any questions.
Any questions from members? Councillor Owen, thank you.
Two questions. On the reactive work, could you give us an idea of how many referrals you sort of get a quarter or a year, however you want to do it? And then my second question is, do we, or when we refer to the police, I assume we do, what are the outcomes with referrals to the police? Like how sort of, I say good, I don't mean it in a good way, but like how active are the police in the investigations?
In terms of your first question, in terms of referrals, I don't have the numbers off the top of my head, but I can certainly consult our fraud management system and advise you of those at a later date. It's certainly with sort of about in the hundreds, but I can give you better quality sort of data on that once I consult our management system. Okay. We don't obviously investigate hundreds, just simply we haven't got the resource to do that. That is why it's so important that we vet them, risk assess them and put them in priority and how we're going to investigate them. And in answer to your second question, we very rarely refer anything to the police. The reason for that is most of the work that we undertake we can undertake in-house, and that will go as far as investigation, prosecution, bringing it to court. So we don't use the police very, very often in order to do that, only on specific things where maybe we've not got the resource to do that. But we tend, if we can, to take everything to fruition ourselves.
Thank you. Going back to that point, when we talk about police, Do you mean external or our internal hub within the council building? Would you go to them first or to external?
In terms of our internal hub police, we will go to them should we need help in order to facilitate any exercises that we need to do. For example, in a extreme scenario, if we needed to facilitate an arrest of someone, we would actually go to the, obviously we haven't got those powers, as you know, we would go to our local police in order to help facilitate that. In terms of the wider aspect, fraud cases, that would go via action fraud into the City of London Police and then be disseminated outwards.
Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Whitehouse.
And just to follow up Councillor Owen's point, ones that you don't investigate, to what extent are those not investigated because, you know, they, after charging or whatever, you know, they have no merit, or you know, there's just no information there that you can follow up because the information is so sketchy? And how much are there sort of potentially investigable, but there are other higher priority investigations to carry out?
Yeah, I mean, as you can imagine, the quality of the referrals that we get varies. But what we try to do, where we can, if we're unable to undertake an investigation, or if we're unable to undertake a timely investigation, let's say, it may be that we can pass that on to our colleagues in whatever department it refers to say, look, we've had this information in, maybe you can, if you can have a look at that. I'm not talking about a full-scale investigation, but sometimes it's something that is just very simple. It's something that can come to their attention that they can deal with on the ground going forward.
I mean, the wider thing was, I mean, it's good to hear about the fraud awareness training and so forth. Clearly, if we can prevent rather than, you know, chase people up afterwards, that's good. Do we also, or how much do we do in terms of raising awareness among people who potentially might be tempted to commit fraud? I mean, for example, you know, Councillor Hustale's been the obvious one. You know, is it clear to people that, you know, applications aren't just nodded through, they'll be fully scrutinised, you know, other things and so forth? Do people understand that, you know, data can be matched and therefore, you know, that potentially may dissuade them from trying things on?
Yeah, I mean, we definitely try to do that. What we've looked at is we try to look at each entry point, if you like, into council services. And we try to involve the staff on the front line to keep an eye out for fraudulent activity. We've also put into place anti-fraud aspects to applications, such as one of the things that we're looking at the moment is wording of application forms, that kind of thing. So we try to get everything at the entry point. And apart from ourselves as well, we also have a very good relationship, I like to think, with frontline staff who try to give over that message on our behalf to say that everything is checked, everything is double checked. For example, a lot of teams will ask us to do particular checks for them or to have a look at just applications that have come in, just really to see if we can see anything, for want of a better phrase, iffy or dodgy about them.
Thank you. Any other questions? No? So if can I ask that we recommend the corporate fraud team plan for approval for 24-25? Yes, thank you. So that is approved. Thank you. Any other business that's arisen from this meeting? No. And therefore, I formally close this meeting at 7:52. 56.